Mr. Norris, we're here today to discuss performance psychology and what it can offer America. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Andrew Norris. I am a 33-year-old small business owner, recently married last July. I own a home in Rockland, California with my lovely wife, 8-year-old daughter, and 2 dogs. I recently attained a bachelor's degree in business management last year from Western Governors University, and a month later started grad school here at National University in performance psychology. In that same month, my wife and I opened our own attorney support business, and we've been going strong at that for about a year now.
What is the difference between clinical psychology and performance psychology?
Well, in my experience, clinical cognitive behavioral therapy only does so much. Performance psychology observes the performer in their element, watches the many processes, puts the pieces together, and asks the questions. Does the client have a problem with authority? There are fundamental flaws in the system that the performer is a part of. Talent can fail based on the system that they operate in. Performance consultants should have contextual awareness and intelligence to understand the moving parts of the system that the performer operates in, and also understand both the formal and informal structure of any given system in which the performer operates in. Clinical psychology operates from a deficit model. I want to help my clients climb out of the deficit or out of their baseline and into a upper echelon of performance. How do I get... Oh, that's it. Pause.
Mr. Norris, why did you choose to pursue performance psychology rather than clinical psychology?
Well, really, I've always been interested in psychology, just not really interested in attaining any kind of clinical degree. The thought of showing up at the same office day after day is not something that really appeals to me. I really want to be out in the field. I don't want to be trapped in a routine where I wake up every morning dreading going to work. I want to be on the move. I definitely crave stability, but not to the point of monotony. And as a performance consultant, I'm able to observe my clients in their natural performing environments. I've always been drawn to performing arts, huge sports nut. Love and have high admiration for the performing arts, whether it be actors, dancers, or musical performers. I also find myself drawn to high-risk professions in law enforcement and the military, and I like the idea of assisting those that have an interest in enriching our society as a whole.
Mr. Norris, most people don't know what performance psychology is or what a performance consultant does. Would you be able to give us some examples, perhaps from sports or some of the other things that you mentioned, things that Americans would recognize as far as what performance psychology offers performers, or what a performance consultant actually does?
Well, performance psychology is still evolving. It's a relatively new field in the grand scheme of this big wide world of psychology. There's a definitive need for performance consulting nowadays. Read any news story with the NFL players beating their wives, beating their kids. You've even got one guy on trial right now for murder. So these athletes who seemingly have the world at their fingertips are murdering people and beating their wives. So something definitely has to be done. There may be roots in CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, if I can say that correctly. But there's a definitive need for performance psychologists. Also, not a huge Seahawks fan, but Dr. Gervais being on the sidelines and preaching the benefits of meditation and therapeutic talk on that team has really propelled performance psychology into the public eye. Even though the Seahawks made a bad play in the Super Bowl, they still have a very crystal clear mindset. Mentally, very strong team. The coaches may make bad calls, but they have a good game plan, definitely. Ultimately, Dr. Gervais got me interested in performance psychology. And I'm a 49ers fan, and I ask myself all the time, how come the Seahawks are so much better? Besides an amazing roster, I think it's the mindset. They play as a unit, seem calm and centered, and they look like they're legitimately having fun on the field. In published reports I've read about Dr. Gervais, it seems that the team members definitely respect him, and he's just really good for sports. A small number of performance consultants actually work with professional athletes, though, and mostly it's high school athletes and collegiate athletes, and most definitely other arenas where this can benefit our business. Business consultants help businesses become more efficient. They utilize business consultants to help weed out personnel that's helping the business versus hurting the business, and help businesses hire specific kinds of personnel so they can run more efficiently without being too repetitive there. High-risk professionals definitely have a need for performance consulting. I was a sheriff in Monterey County for a year or so, and trust me, these law enforcement professionals could really use someone at their side who can empathize and help them work through a lot of their stressful situations. Another arena where this would be necessary is the military. Military has been utilized extensively, or rather I should say performance psychologists have been utilized extensively by the military recently. And it's just really helpful to all types of performers, any performer that feels that they're at an impasse and need to stretch their own limitations.
Would you say that performance psychology could be used for regular people, that a regular person like myself, a small business owner, could use a performance consultant?
Well, I mean, every aspect of life is in essence performance. Depends on where you see yourself going. I mean, for instance, you're a small business owner. If you find yourself being disrespected by customers or coworkers, we can definitely find the weak spots in how you're operating your business and guide you to success.
If a performer is having trouble, how do you know that performance psychology or a performance consultant would be the right way to go versus traditional clinical therapy?
Well, performance psychology and being a performance consultant is all about balancing the many strengths of a performer, matching their mental game with their physical game. Performance psychology seeks to dissect the many elements of any given performance. Clinical psychology is very useful, and oftentimes a performance consultant must be able to have the humility and wherewithal to realize when the performer's issues are better suited to be treated by a licensed clinical psychologist. Performance psychology encompasses mental and physical growth and strength, as well as all areas in between, such as high stress environments, social or media pressures, high pressure anxiety regulation, as it relates to their performance. I've always been a champion for the powers of the mind. And when you look at an athlete, high-ranking military professional, experienced, successful law enforcement individual, actors, singers, entertainers, doctors, it's very obvious that the skills and abilities they have allowed them to achieve various levels of success, but what they may not have is the right mindset. That is what performance psychology brings to the performer's table. An opportunity to become a peak performer, to truly operate on all cylinders, and not just be successful in a profession, but to achieve at their highest level in all areas of life. Performance psychologists broaden the performer's skills and help them learn new habits to help them consistently perform at a high level. For far too long, the powers of the mind have been underrated or overlooked, especially in professional sports, where it's been a long-standing assumption among players that if you reach out to a mental health professional, you're showing signs of weaknesses to your teammates. Maybe your teammates will perceive that you're weak. And I think this mindset is definitely changing. And for the first time, we're realizing that a person can really be a winner and reach that upper echelon with the right mindset.
Based on what you're telling me, you'd be working with high-paid athletes or extremely talented doctors, military personnel, etc. How do you think you could get through to these kinds of people? I mean, traditionally, people in this of this caliber may not be willing to listen to advice. What do you think you would do to get through to your clients?
I myself am a man of very humble means, humble background. I don't carry myself with too much bravado, and I think my clients can see that I'm not trying to outshine them. I also don't take an overly clinical approach. I authentically want to see my clients succeed, not only in their given profession, but in life. I have a vested interest in seeing them succeed, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I derive a lot of satisfaction from seeing the progress from start to finish. And working as a behavioral specialist for a few years with emotionally disturbed teenagers, I had the experience working with a number of individuals with severe anxiety and issues with violence. And despite the number of clinical psychiatrists and psychologists on staff, I was able to notice that that wasn't always the answer. I mean, the students time and time again would ask for me. Despite my lack of educational background, I was authentically there to, listen to them. A lot of times clinicians fall into the trap of over-articulation. I mean, it's good to be educated, most definitely good to be educated, but it's not the whole story. You have to be, empathetic and authentically there for the people that you're working for, client-wise.
In closing, if you had one message for America about the importance of performance psychology or utilizing a performance consultant, what would that message be?
Look at your performer as a Ferrari in all its beauty and glossiness, and overall luster. I mean, people don't think about what it takes to run a Ferrari, all the things that need to be working properly in order for the machine to operate at its peak. You gotta have the best spark plugs, best oil. Inner parts of the car are akin to the performer's brain. So you can have the most amazing body, education, everything that would project success for you, but not actually have a healthy, successful mindset. And being a performer without establishing the right mindset practices with a performance psychologist is like looking like a Ferrari on the outside, but operating with the engine capacity of a rebuilt Ford Pinto or any other Ford vehicle for that matter.